Hey geeks, I found this new Teen Titans Omnibus for $30 at 2nd and Charles. It's in great condition too. Now I collected all these issues. I have all these issues. I bought them off the newsstand, and then eventually I think the comic book shops, I think they might have gone direct to market at some point, but Marv, Wolfman, and George Perez, their run on this comic book was probably some of the greatest comics ever created. That's no exaggeration. This omnibus is a great way to read through all those issues. In fact, it kind of goes up to the point where I stopped reading them and collecting them. So I don't know what's in volume 2 of the omnibus, but I was thumbing through this and I was like, yeah, I've read all these long time ago in the 80s. But this is the book that really, for me, George Perez was already kind of on my radar, I think, from the Avengers, but he just nails it. I mean, this is just peak George Perez in this comic book run. Dude is an absolute legend. Just a fantastic artist. I always loved, Kirby, of course. I would say George Perez was probably my second favorite artist at the time when he came on the scene, because his work was kind of like the, for lack of a better term, I would say like the anti-Kirby, because he was so detailed in the way that he did his artwork, the way he did his pencils was just so detailed, and his ability to frame cinematic panel. I think that was one of the things that was like, he does it so effortlessly that the reader kind of doesn't understand why they're being so drawn into the comic book, and it's because of the way he cinematically frames his shots. And this is a good example of it. It's like watching a movie that's been filmed by a master cinematographer or director. So the story just kind of sucks you in because you have the perfect combination of artwork style, framing, clarity, and writing. This is the book that was probably, I think you could say it was DC Comics' answer to the X-Men over at Marvel, the Chris Claremont era. And I believe the idea is we got to out-X the X-Men. And I think at this point, when this book came out, they probably had the slight edge over the X-Men. At least, in my opinion, it was. I found myself loving the new Teen Titans more than the X-Men, but I had already been, reading the Chris Claremont X-Men for probably 2 or 3 years, I think, before this book arrived. But it definitely stands on its own because of the consistent, fantastic artwork by George Perez. And for superhero comics, this is like a masterclass. Oh yeah, and this is the first time I ever learned of the Doom Patrol when I was a kid. When Cliff, the robot man, shows up in the book, I was like, the Doom Patrol? He's talking about, how he used to be with the Doom Patrol and they're all dead and he's supposed to be dead, and I was like, Doom Patrol. That sounds like a really cool name for a superhero group. It, it was actually. I was like, is that like a group of villains? Like, so I don't know how at the time. So at the time, we didn't have any internet, and so any comic history you wanted to know, you either had to pick it up by way of osmosis from reading comic books, or if you could grab a magazine. There was no Wizard magazine back then. There was Comics Scene, which was created by the people who were publishing Starlog. But there again, you'd have to be lucky if they maybe did an article about Doom Patrol. So when Cliff shows up here in the early or mid 80s, Doom Patrol, I think, had been pretty much dead to DC for 15, maybe 20 years. As far as I know, once they killed them off in their own book, and then they of course they began to resurrect them, and they had a whole story about how the team ended up surviving or something like that, and which led to the Doom Patrol that we know and love, since the 90s. So yeah, it was like and the idea, as you can probably see, was like the new Teen Titans were basically like the baby Justice League for you know. So you had Robin, who basically broke off from Batman, kind of went out on his own. You had, I guess, Diana. Was it the? This is like a female Wonder Woman, and they get into her backstory. I forget her name. It's not Diana Prince. It's the Wonder Woman, but Donna. That's it. Donna something or other. This is where Cyborg first made his appearance. Starfire. I have not seen any of the CW shows. Titans, I haven't seen any of those other than the crossover into the Doom Patrol episode. Not really interested in going back and watching those episodes, but it would be kind of cool if maybe the Titans showed up in the James Gunn universe. But yeah, this is kind of like where you have Robin sort of kind of come into adulthood as Dick Grayson. I think this precedes him eventually, I think, becoming Nightwing. I think he becomes Nightwing in the new Teen Titans. That eventually happens. You got Kid Flash. And this is is it Brainiac Boy? Is that his name? But he's like one of the younger. He's one of the Brainiac family. Raven was a new character. She's kind of like the original goth girl. um, and you've got all these different like perturbations of the Titans in the animated world. There's some that are like, I don't know what I've seen. Like, isn't there one? It's that Go Titans, isn't it? Go Teen Titan or whatever. It's like it's geared. It's a kids show. I've seen a little bit of it. And then there's the animated movies. They pop up in the DC animated universe. I don't know if I guess there's a Teen Titans animated movie potentially. But really all that stuff is just, to me, it's just peripheral to these comics. These comics are the source Bible for these characters. And these comics are the best representation of these characters. Oh, yeah, there was a lot of Doom Patrol crossover into this. So that's what's his name? God, I can't remember his name. But from the Doom Patrol, is it Colonel Marceau or something like that? He's like their perpetual villain. A lot of wordless panels. Again, George Perez just showing you, like, dropping some science on you with basically a movie. put to page. All that's missing is kind of like the soundtrack music. In-depth character development for every single character in this book. Here's like the cyborg backstory. Yeah, I got this issue. When these started coming out, the Tales of the Titans, this miniseries. Yeah, so they did like origin stories, like dedicated origin story comics for all the characters, which was really cool. So it turns into an epic, you know. It's a sprawling epic, and yeah, it all goes right up to the point where I kind of, oh yeah, there's the Doom Patrol, resurrected. That was also a great idea by Marv Wolfman to bring back the Doom Patrol and do it by way of the Titans. So those two teams are kind of linked, you know. I don't know if they really played up that partnership or that linkage. They didn't really do it during the Grant Morrison run. Maybe they did in some of the latter Doom Patrol iterations through DC, but these are two teams that are kind of like should always be kind of like helping each other out. And because of the different characters that you have here, you were able to bring different elements into the book. So with Starfire being an extraterrestrial, they could bring all kinds of science fiction plot lines and concepts into it. Whereas with like Robin, it was kind of grounded more in the Batman type world. And this is where you get into like probably one of the best stories ever in comics. The Deathstroke, the Terminator issues, the Judas Contract, which just was mind blowing at the time. And still is. And then you have sort of like with Raven, you had sort of like the magic and occult angle to comics. Of course, with Donna Wonder Woman, which I'll call her, you had the mythological aspect of it with Kid Flash. You had time travel. The perfect synthesis of characters to bring in all kinds of different comic book elements and so-called tropes that just they were able to play with, and they took full advantage of that in this book. And I think that was also one of the reasons it was so popular, was just sort of the diversity of the storylines that they were able to put into the writing, kept the reader amazed at all these different aspects of comic book storytelling that they could get into. So yeah, it was another reason I think for the popularity of this book. It really just the perfect confluence of talent, storytelling, writing, characters. At this point in time in this book, really made it something special. And an all-time classic. It will always be an all-time classic. So yeah, I don't know what this retails for. Probably $100, $150. Just found it on a whim, man, for $30. When I saw it, I was like, oh, they're probably going to charge like 60 or 70 for it. And it's in such great condition. But $30, I was like, oh hell yeah. You can't pass that up. So yeah, I'm looking forward to rereading all of these issues in this omnibus, because this is definitely a blast from the past. If you can find a copy that's less than retail, I'd say go for it for sure. If you don't want to dig up all your back issues like me. So that's all for now. Have a great weekend. Stay geek.